Hi, everyone, and welcome to UTSC Life Skills. These are a series of videos focused on post secondary students designed to help you accomplish your personal, academic, and life goals. I am Dr. Amanda Ulizik, and I am a professor at the University of Toronto, and I'm also a clinical psychologist. I'm really excited for you to show up today and learn a little bit more about things that will make you successful in your university career. So, the first thing we're talking about are relationships. And so, university is a place full of new social situations and relationships. So, this might be making new friends, communicating with professors, and the changing relationships that you might have with your parents and your family. These relationships are built through strong communication strategies. It doesn't matter if it's family, friends, professors, how we communicate is extremely important. And these are largely done in terms of speaking and writing. But we also communicate nonverbally with our eye contacts, facial expressions, body language, and tone of voice. Typically, we want to have a relaxed and alert body posture, regular eye contact, even tone of voice, and facial expressions that reflect your emotion. However, these may look different depending on the needs of the situation. For example, if a friend is telling you about a troubling situation while you're out at public, maybe getting a coffee, you might have a quiet tone of voice so that other people don't overhear. Or if you're trying to increase your own confidence, you might have a very erect posture with hands on your hips. Things may also look differently depending on your culture or gender. For example, in some cultures, it's less appropriate to use a very loud tone of voice or a very direct eye contact. Um, it's the same too, if depending on your age or your gender or other identity aspects and the age, identity, and culture of the other person that you're interacting with. So you may have to change up your tone of voice, your body language, or your facial expression, depending on the situation at hand. What becomes most important in all of this is the idea that you need to practice, practice, practice. It's so important to practice your communication skills. First, your communication needs change as you transition from high school to university to your full time job. You'll need to learn new ways. Second, we are always introduced with new situations, and you may find yourself having to communicate in something that you're not familiar with. This might be when you're traveling to a new place, or even new technologies, how they introduce themselves and require different forms of communication. Third, all of us have strengths and weaknesses in communication strategies. So we may need to practice places where we're not as good. And fourth, practicing something you're nervous about helps you get rid of that nervousness. So if one or more of these things we're going to talk about makes you a little bit uncomfortable, that's a great place to start practicing. So what might that look like? Well, if you're quiet in class, practice raising your hand and participating. If you have trouble with eye contact, practice looking at people you feel comfortable with, or maybe looking at someone's forehead or at their nose so that you're getting closer and closer to making regular eye contact. Also, smiling can help put you at ease. It lets your body know that, the emotional situation is okay and safe. So, if we know kind of what to do with our body and our voice and our eyes, what do we know? What about how we speak or write? How do we kind of determine the skills needed for our speaking and writing goals? Well, first, we might want to ask ourselves, what do we want out of this interaction? Do I need something from this person? Am I asking them for something? Or am I saying no to a request that they're making? Or is it more important that this person likes me? And often these two things, we want both of them, and that's okay too. We can use both of these skills at the same time. So, the first, we're going to talk about validation. And those are strategies that bring people closer together. They make you a better friend, a better partner, and a better student or employee. What they also do is that if someone else is upset or stressed and they are talking to you, validating them can help reduce those emotions for them. So, how do we validate when we're listening to someone tell us something important? We want to be present and actively listen. So we don't want to be on our phones. Don't want to be checking our watch. We don't want to be looking at something else that's more interesting. We want to be mindful of our verbal and nonverbal reactions. So just like we just talked about, we want to make sure that we're having a relaxed posture. We are looking in a way that's comforting and empathic. A good way to begin deciding what to say when someone needs validation is to observe what they're feeling in the moment. And if that's really hard, maybe you listen for any feeling words that are used. So things like I'm stressed, I'm upset, it was hurtful, I was overjoyed. And then the first step with validation, what is really important to show that you're validating someone, is to reflect that feeling back to them without judgment. So we want to communicate that we understand how the other person feels. Not that we agree with it or we would have done the exact same thing, but we want to say, okay, I get why you might be angry, or based on what you said, I understand why you might be sad. Or, yeah, if I had those kind of thoughts right now, I definitely would be having a hard time too. We also want to show tolerance. So, just like you may not agree or you may not have acted the same way, that doesn't mean that you need to throw that judgment back. What you want to do is find the pieces that do make actual sense to you, and you can ignore the pieces that don't for the time being. What's most important is that you thoughtfully respond to the person in a way that shows you are taking them seriously. Okay, so now let's do a little bit of practice through a brief quiz. So let's say you have a friend and they tell you, I failed my test. I'm so stupid. How do you validate that? Obviously, we don't want to tell our friend something that would make them more upset. So do you say A, you're right, you are stupid? B, yeah, but at least you passed the first test? Or C, oh no, you must be really upset. How can I help? Well, hopefully you saw that the answer is C. Oh no, you must be really upset. How can I help? So you're not telling them that you agree, oh yeah, you're stupid. You're not trying to make them feel like you don't understand and brush off their emotion by saying, oh yeah, but you did fine before. You really want to show that you understand that they are their emotions. How about another thing? You have a professor who says, you obviously were not paying attention in class today. And you start thinking, yeah, but I was. So what do you say back to the professor? So we have A, I know I was on my phone during class, so I can understand why you might think that. Are you still able to help me? B, that's not true. You don't even know what you're talking about. C, I'm so sorry. I'm an awful student. Well, hopefully you can say, A, I know I was on my phone during class, so I understand why you might think that. Are you still able to help me? So you're able to say, okay, I can kind of see why you might think I wasn't paying attention. You're not admitting that you weren't. You're not saying that you agree, and you're not also aggressively disagreeing, but you're able to still ask for what you need from that professor. So it's important to note validation is not just about being sweet and nice and agreeing to everything. It's not about that at all. It's really about recognizing truth that's going to bring you closer to the person and help diffuse any negative emotions. Next, let's talk about how to get what you want in an interpersonal interaction. This is the DEAR skill. So how to get what you want. Step one. What you want to do, the D in Dear Man, is describe the situation. You need to tell just the facts. Don't add your opinions. Don't blame someone. Don't whine. You stick to what are the black and white facts. Step two, express your feelings. So if you were upset by something that someone did or you're sad, you say, I felt this way. So you're not blaming it on them. You're not saying you made me mad, you made me upset. You are simply saying that this is how I'm feeling right now. For the A, you need to state clearly what you need. The person cannot read your mind, so you need to ask directly for what it is that you would like the person to do for you. And then finally, step 4 is to reinforce and negotiate. So reinforce means you can tell the person why giving you what they want, what you want is good for everybody. It can also just be saying thank you in advance, which is often really nice and lacking when someone wants something. Negotiating means you should give options. So maybe there's an alternative to, or maybe several different ways you could get what you want. You can offer that up. And I'll give you some examples. And remember, the DEAR skill can be used when you're talking, when you're texting, when you're emailing. So let's bring back that professor who said, you're not paying attention in class and you really want help from this professor. This is how you might use the DEAR strategy after you validate. So D, describe. Today in class, I had a difficult time understanding the material. So that's just the facts. It wasn't, you're a bad professor, you didn't make sense. This is what's going on. Express my feelings. I ended up feeling lost and a bit hopeless. Assert what you need. I would like to meet with you to go over my notes. And reinforce or negotiate. This would allow me to do better in the course and participate more. So that's something that's reinforcing for everybody. Professors want you to participate. Also, I'm happy to put my questions in an email form if this is easier. So now you're also negotiating, you're giving some options. So these are ways to clearly get what you'd like from your professor, increase your chances. What might this look like in a text message? Oops, too fast. So you can see the text message on the left is one not using the DEAR skill. You need to clean the apartment. You never do it. I'm always the one that has to pick up the slack. It's getting to be ridiculous how lazy you are. Okay, that doesn't really follow our DEAR. Instead, we describe, it's been a week since the apartment has been vacuumed and the garbage has been taken out. So those can be facts. Express yourself. It makes me anxious when the chores aren't getting done. Okay, assert. We've agreed that these are your responsibility and I would like you to do them. That's your assertion. And we reinforce. It would make me feel so much better and I would be more pleasant around the house. That's your reinforcement and your negotiation. I'm even happy to trade chores with you if you think the roles are unfair, and thank you. So what does this look like in writing an email to your professor, for example? Well, when you're writing an email, let's ensure that you also have some important things, not just the DEAR. First, do an informative subject line. Include the course number and a brief title. So maybe you say something like size C36, question about lecture on June 10th. Putting hey or what's up, those are not good subject lines for a professional email. Next, you want to have a salutation. So you want to say something like, Dear Professor Ulizik, or Dear Dr. Ulizik. Professor is an easy way to go because if they're instructing you, likely they are professors, or it's nice to ask. Because when people are addressed by the wrong title, it can often be upsetting. And often to address a professor by their first name, unless they've said that that's all right, is thought to be a sign of disrespect. So it's always better to use doctor or professor or to ask. Now, we use our DEAR skills to discuss our describe, our express, and our assertion. But again, we want to really end all of our emails with a saying thank you and offering options. This is the best way to get what you want. So for this week, what we would love to see is for you to practice writing an email to your professor, asking for an extension, a meeting, or a letter of reference. This is a great way to practice these skills. So as always, be well. And if you would like to know more, here is a link to the lab as well as my email.